Remembering Adam's disobedience and God's mercy. And behold, when the wolf minded Isaiah wolf had finished his miraculous speech, full of wisdom out of me, he happily leapt away, and a big bear was suddenly standing before the remorseful, contrite group and gazed at them with confused and unsteady eyes, as if he wanted thereby to show that their minds were still confused and unsteady like its eyes. Thus, pointing to their state of mind, finally, the bear too opened its jaws and wheeled by me, began to address to them fortifying words full of earnestness and dignity, saying, "What is God? What are you and what am I? After God, the eternal, the holy, the almighty, had created out of himself through his almighty essential word the entire visible world, with all the suns, planets, moons, seas, mountains, valleys, and great plains, and then place upon them all kinds of plants like grasses, herbs, shrubs, and trees, and all this according to his wise order, one after the other, and thus a little later in the same order, gradually all imaginable kinds of animals, and had found that all this was perfectly in agreement with his holiness and was good. His love within him spoke to God in the center of his infinite, almighty holiness. Now that everything is well prepared, let us make also man from the finest clay of the earth, as a perfect image out of me, according to my love and my grace, in order that we may be recognized and praised by an independent life outside of us, and that one day all creation may be saved in and through him, thereby to attain once more to the free awareness of its useful existence out of me. And behold, this was promptly carried out as planned. Within a few moments the eternal man was standing there in all his glorious majesty, endowed with endless perfections, privileges, and still greater abilities for the attainment of even more endless perfections towards becoming similar to his primeval, most holy origin, namely to become like his great God out of and in the sphere of his spiritual consecration. He had the power to speak with all creation, and there was not a sound so high and distant that he could not have perceived his forceful and querying voice, and none of the highest angel spirits would have dared not to answer the great inquirer and speaker. And God himself, visible to his beloved, spoke with him like a brother, saying, "Look at me, my beloved Adam," for that was and is the name of the still living first man, not in order to test you, but to make you perfectly free and mighty as myself. I give you an easy and brave commandment for only a very short time. This you shall keep during this time until I again return to you. If you have kept it faithfully, I shall remain with you, and you shall share everything with me, as if we were one. Behold, everything must obey your might, but there in a short distance you see a tree laden with beautiful fruit. For a wise reason I have not yet blessed this tree. Therefore you shall not yet taste of the sweet juice of its apples, for on the day you will eat from it, before I have returned with my blessing, you will be sinning and rendering yourself perishable, weak, powerless, blind, deaf, and mortal. O my beloved Adam, do bear in mind the words of your most loving Creator, and do not spoil the already so far advanced greatest work of my love and wisdom. For now it no longer depends on me and my almightiness, but on you alone, by virtue of the freedom of your will, which I have reluctantly granted you. Now you can't preserve or ruin yourself, therefore keep this easy commandment, and you shall become a second God out of and in me. And lo, the day changed hardly 7 times with his lightless companion, when already this first man, placed by God so very high and free, through the lustful and ruinous sight of his second self, became weak, deaf and blind, and yet fully aware of what he was doing, forgot God to his great detriment, and willfully disobeyed the so easy commandment, which was full of the good and holy Creator's love. Then the Eternal, the Holy One, in his anger destroyed the entire visible world before the eyes of the remorseful sinner. Not even a stone of the size of an apple was preserved, and not a single animal, which already for millennia prior to ungrateful man had gratefully walked over the meager plains of the earth. Everything was completely destroyed in the endless sea of fire of the divine wrath. Nothing was holy to God any longer, whether guilty or innocent. That was all the same to the great wrath. His voice thundered above and in the spaces of infinity, with immense might and eternal destruction to all creation. The world shook, dissolving in their foundations, and their fragments were flying, howling and frightfully lamenting, from one infinity to the next before the angry face of God. However, here something takes place which no angel will comprehend in all eternity. While he, the Holy One, in his wrath destroys everything with his right hand on account of the desecration through the sin of the great evildoer, his equally holy left hand protects the weeping sinner, and only a small tear of the sinner fell into the so mightily cruel and furious eye of God, and behold, all the wrath had vanished, and already a new creation was smiling in and out of the endless spaces of the disobedient man. And the earth and all the worlds were once more happily teeming with countless creatures for the service of disobedient man. As he had been prior to the sin, he remained pardoned after it for almost more than 30 years, with all his incomprehensible might and power. But he fell again, having forgotten his so-loving Creator in the passion of his lust. Then the Creator expelled him, that is, carried him on his hands from paradise. And in another place the desert had to flower under the tread of the great sinner. The Creator punished the fratricide Cain with an extremely fertile land, because he had cried over his evil deed, and besides he freed him from the clutches of his son Enoch, and gave him the sea and all the land therein. The same happened with Meduhed and his numerous people, and now his boundless love proves itself once more where you are concerned, and even against the greatest evildoer Lamech his heart is not hardened. Oh, see, you most unworthy men, what a boundless love God had, and still has for you, notwithstanding all your unspeakable sins. Hear his voice through me, proclaim his mercy. Look over there towards midday, where he has already prepared a great land for you, and see how he invisibly protected you from our just anger at his great, most loving heart. And listen now when I will have finished my commanded speech to you. And you shall, weeping, cast yourselves down before his love. He will have you seized by an angel and gently guided to the already mentioned beautiful land. O men, think what God is and what you are, and could and should be through his boundless love. But when you enjoy God's grace, bear also in mind who and what we despised beasts are unlike him, who is not only your Creator and ours, but also wants to be a true Father, and actually is that and has been for a very long time, since before the world, and we were made embrace with his love, all beings unselfishly. And bear in mind that we too, although dumb and without speech, enjoy life. Therefore, in your love out of God, let once on the great day to come also us see a new light of the free life out of God, in which all creatures shall and will live everlastingly. Now fall on your faces before God, your Holy Father, and weep penitent tears of true love. Then let yourselves be raised by the gentle hand of the Almighty Creator, and now also your most loving Father, and be led by his blessing right hand to the mentioned land. There you shall become a nation, and what you have to be like his own holy mouth will teach you mightily through the lips of a great brother angel. Amen. August 3rd, 1840. And behold, when the bear had ended its speech, it vanished from their sight, and in its place there suddenly appeared an angel, clothed in a white garment of light. This angel was the pious Abel, who actually had already invisibly spoken through the souls of the animals. Actually, whenever natural things speak to the mouth of a seer and prophet, some angel transferred from these things to the soul of the seer and prophet, who then with corresponding natural words either writes it down or, which is easier, proclaims it directly with concise words. Only the seer and prophet understands why the one is harder to do and the other easier. Wherefore also the apostles used to more often speak rather than write, as did all the earlier seers and prophets. When these 14 people of both sexes finally caught sight of the angel, the latter began to speak to them very gently out of me, as follows, and this is faithful and true. Children of Cain, my brother who had been so bad, but who is still living and will be living physically throughout the earth's ages and until the end of all time, inaccessible to all mortals right to the early end of all malice, when after the great the Almighty will proclaim to the late descendants of great things through a small seer, and will speak of your evil patriarch, which is now happening and has already happened. Take notice of what I shall here make known to you, according to the most holy will of God, the Almighty, eternal Creator, as well as most loving Father of all the angels, patriarchs, and men. You have heard most precious words from the jaws of the fiercest beast, which God has appeased through me, and enabled to speak to you, who were more corrupt than these beasts, through the malice of Enoch's serpent. It is now especially Lamech, who has become a great evildoer, loathed by all creation, and whose shoulders are already burdened with God's judgments, weighing like whole worlds, watching the almost totally filled vessel of crimes above the stars. Since you are the youngest, and still are, who were compelled to join the serpent army of Tatahara against your somewhat better will, God's boundless love has shown mercy to you. It enabled you to recognize Lamech's, the atheist's, crimes in his most arrogant, cruel tyranny. Then it led you here in a miraculous way, negotiating this great distance in a short time, whereas normally it would take more than 120 days. Above all, you were saved from the clutches of the beast, where the infamous Tatahar found his just judgment, and through death you were shown your own death. Then I already, who already have been fully alive for a long time, was sent to you in order to awaken you from the sleep of death, and to show you the life in humility and willing obedience to the most holy will of God, and to lead you to a land which God's eternal love has prepared for you. And once you will have come to know yourselves completely in your love for Him in all humility, you will also, through the added grace of God, recognize life's true, holy, and greatest worth within you, and only there from the most holy and supreme worth of the eternal love of the Holy, Almighty Creator of all things, and most loving Father of all the angels and men, not only of this earth, but countless other worlds of which so far you have not had the faintest notion. For to know that is only given to the children and angels of God. However, one day worlds will bow to this earth, when its light will surpass that of all the heavens, for then God's holiness will shine to all nations that will be of good will. And if you will remain true in humility, in willing obedience to the most holy will of the eternal great Father, this light will penetrate to you too, and make you alive throughout. But if ever you should, or could, assume superiority one over the other, this most brilliant and most holy light from God's innermost depth will shine upon you, only like the light of the most distant sun of creation in the dark night of the earth. Look, the descendants of Lamech will, because of their arrogance, soon reach the firmament with their heads, and penetrated with their infamous, blind, and deaf obstinacy is dark and evil criminals in that particular spot where the large vessel is standing, which is now almost full to the brim with all kinds of atrocities, and has become very brittle. This large vessel will then fall upon the earth, filled with sins and the most terrible judgments of God. Then all the evildoers will drown and choke in the mire deluge of harlotry, and sweep along with them a very great number of God's children, who will have allowed the daughters of the serpent to captivate their hearts. They will commit infamous harlotry with them and beget children of God's wrath, and curse who will be called children of hell and infants of the dragons, and no more than 8 persons will then be spared. But before all this happens, the Lord will, for 300 years, send teachers and prophets who will warn the people of the Lord's judgments and preach penitence to them for the forgiveness of their sins and the complete change of their deathly sham life in the night of hell. They will show them the path of true life out of God's endless, merciful love and grace, and show them in a miraculous way, on a small scale, the type of God's imminent great judgments. Then the evil brood will seize the teachers and prophets and kill part of them, but the others they will embrace with serpents' arms and drag them down into the sink of corruption of their harlotry, deprave and deaden their spirit, and make them murderers of their own children. Then God will have the last teacher, Mahal, a brother of the only righteous son, whose name will be Noah, i.e., the just son, of his own free will, travel to the wicked cities and preach there. This man will have bad experiences, become bad himself, finally abandon God and perish in the sink of corruption. Only then will the mentioned vessel, full of sin and judgment, break to pieces and laden with all the curse, be flung to the earth to ignite it in all the evil spots from their center. And only for the sake of the few righteous, the merciful love of God will open the mighty floodgates of heaven and roll the high floods over even the highest mountains, in order to mitigate the hellish fires and preserve and cleanse the children, as well as the earth itself, for the carrying of a better race according to the will of God. However, neither the fire nor the flood shall afflict you, if in humble obedience you will observe the now revealed will of God, which says, Let your foremost thought be God, His will, His love, and His grace. And when the day will retire into the star-glittering arms of the night, and the last ray of God's beautiful sun will gently fade away above the white plains of the earth, you shall in this searching light thoughts of your immortal spirit retire into the blessed repose of your body. You shall not worry about nourishment for your body, for where the Lord has blessed some land on earth, its inhabitants will never have to suffer hunger, as long as their aspiration will be directed towards having before their eyes and in their hearts and the most holy will of the eternal great Father, blessing all things, for men were created to recognize God and His most holy will, to live according to it, and in word and deed praise the most holy name of the great eternal God. And if you will do this in all humility and willing obedience out of pure and selfish love for God, He will always be prepared to make His most holy will known to you, partly indirectly through the language of nature, partly directly through His own living word, speaking aloud in your hearts. Should you fail to do this on just one day in a state full of complacence, which is only to test you, the heart of the one who was able to forget God will initially feel heavy with an admonishing sadness, and be for 7 days dumb like a rotten tree. And as the ground under the tread of the obedient will bear and ripen the noblest fruits, the earth under the tread of the disobedient will become a desert and bear nothing but dust, stones, thorns, thistles, and poisonous berries. For God's boundless love and wisdom gives everyone his due. To the pious and obedient children, He gives bread, honey, milk, and sweet fruits, both physically and spiritually, whereas the disobedient, proud brood of the serpent receives stones, dust, thorns, and thistles, and poisonous berries, spiritually and physically, in order that the evil brood may perish, and if possible, the dead spirit can be preserved and gradually become alive again through the boundless merciful love of the great, eternal, alone, most holy Father. Behold, all of you are equal, the men the same as the women, but you women shall properly cover your private parts, also your whole body, and preferably also your head, so that the men are not enticed unchastely by your lewd nature, as the serpent by the great secret lasciviousness of its seductive eyes lures the free genus of birds into its venomous jaws. For you women are first of all children of the serpent, and full of its venom. Therefore be above all modest like the queen bee, that does not venture out into the sunlight, but carefully crawls by day and night over the cells of its harmless little children. You too shall be like this, and obey your husbands in everything, as far as is required by the most holy will of God. But if a man, which should never be the case, should want to force you to something that is against the most holy will of God, you are allowed to uncover your head before the man, and lovingly remind him of his duties towards God. And if you will fulfill all this, then the Lord will overwhelm you with his graces, and you will become a sweet and welcome sight to the eternal Holy Father, eternal and immortal. You men shall have no other law but the always apparent most holy will of the supreme God. If any of you should ever ignore this in his heart, the holy mouth of God, as well as that of nature, will gradually cease to speak to you. Then, since he turned away from God to the outside, he will be given an external law which will make him a slave of sin and a servant of hell, if he does not soon change his heart, cleanse it in humble obedience, and once more with lengthy prayers carry it to God in awe and love, in order that he may bless and hallow it again with his also to you most holy will. And let this also to you be a good reminder of how and why you shall aspire after the rebirth. Now stand up and don the clothes prepared for you by the children of God. Over there the ones for the men, and there the ones for women, so that you may be distinguished from each other, also by the style of your garments, morally, modestly, and in your behavior. But far be from you any magnificence and haughtiness. The garment shall only cover you and protect you from the cold and cool nights, and spiritually lead you to God in the warmth of eternal love, meekness, and obedience. And let each of you now take also a protective robe to cover the eyes, so that no one may suffer giddiness at the sight of the precipices across which I am going to lead you. Once we have reached a distant place, you shall free your eyes once more, and let them enjoy the sight of your preliminary homeland, beautifully appointed by the immense love of the best and most holy Father. There you shall refresh yourselves for the eternal, vital strengthening of your spirit, with blessed fare of the earth, given to you by two great children of God, a man and a woman, already awaiting you. Now follow me according to the most holy will of God. Amen. And behold us, my dear Abel, led them for 7 days and nights to the distant place with great speed, over a distance of normally more than 30 days, without rest and food, for they were my guests, and I nourished them spiritually. The spirit then strengthened the soul, and the soul gave energy to the body. Thus with my true heavenly fare they could easily endure the journey. When they had safely reached a distant place, they were received by the two already awaiting children of God, or children of my love, Ahogel, and his wife Asa, son of heaven, and his wife as the silent just desire, grandchildren of Adam's children before Seth. They removed the wraps from the travelers' eyes and welcomed them in the friendliest manner. The 14 little ones were amazed at the sight of the two great children of my love, who had the just measurements of a human being, namely 666 inches, the man and the woman 66 inches less, whereas the rescued ones reached hardly your size of 60 inches. When they had once more the full use of their eyes and ears, the angel again began to speak. Children, this is the place destined for you. Regard these two great children of God as parents given you by God, and obey them in everything. For that is the will of God, which is my first speech I was not allowed revealing. They will always confirm to you what God is going to speak to your hearts, and when your spirit becomes inclined to go to sleep, they will always awaken you and teach you many useful things, which both physically and spiritually will be of great benefit to you. And sexually, you shall not know your partners until those your parents will bless you according to the most holy will of God. Even when you will have been blessed, let all harlotry be far from you, and may chastity shine from your forehead like an evergreen, and let discord, anger, jealousy, covetousness, and lechery never desecrate the hallowed begetting of your children. But be moderate in everything, and let the love of God be your law. If you will do this, the life of your body will be a long one. You will depart from the earth in the great light of the eternal Holy Father's boundless grace, and your true reward will be waiting for you as everlasting life in the wide bosom of the most holy and most loving Father, in the high heaven above the stars, and one day in his most loving heart. However, about this your parents will tell you more, who are well informed by God and do not need me to instruct you. May God's love bless you, and his grace enlightens and hallows you, and leads you to life. Amen, amen, amen. And behold, this is the foundation of Sina, or China, which land was spared from the flood, and is still today in general much better than other countries on earth, except for some silly changes for the worse, which were only later brought in through contact with people from the evil world. Let one who is not reborn never dare to preach my gospel there. Amen.